These little pockets of spicy goodness are the freshest dumplings you'll ever make. From dumplings to pierogi, but these ones are Momo. I'm here at London's premier Asian cookery school, School of Wok. Let's get woking. Now, I really like my Momos packed full of vegetables. The meat is kind of there just to kind of bind everything together. And it's not just Momos, but any type of dumplings. There are these northern Chinese dumplings that I make and I've tried in different parts of China and Hong Kong that really have sort of 80% veg, 20% meat. First off, some finely chopped cabbage. Any type of cabbage will work. I've got a whole load of coriander, some ginger and garlic, of course, and this is all going into my momos, so everything finely chopped. Roll up your coriander nice and tight, stalks and all roughly chopped. And again, I like being quite generous with the coriander. If you don't like coriander, use some sort of herb, any other herb you like. Leafy herbs are good, parsley, or even just a whole load of spring onion. Got some chilli here. You can use red or green chilli. You know, Momos from Nepal, so they've got to have a bit of extra spice to them in comparison to their sort of dumpling cousins from China. I actually quite like to sort of lightly toast the spice to sort of bring out a bit of the heat and also, more importantly, bring out the sweetness of the chili. I'm going to toast them for a minute or so because it's really finely sliced. And then I've got some turmeric, some cumin and coriander powder here. It's all going to go mixed in with the chili before I then use that all to season my mix. So my pan is at a medium heat, and because it's all powdered spices apart from the chili, you don't want it to sit on the hob for too long. Once that spice has had a light toasting, and I quite like to toast it because it kind of opens up the sort of oils and the essence and the flavor, the aroma of those spices, that can all go in. So once you've chopped up all your veg and your spices are all there, all I've got to do is make up my binding ingredient. And with this, it's chicken mince rather than beef or pork that I want. And I'm just going to mince it very roughly with my knife. I've got chicken thigh here, and you want it to go as fine as possible. You could use a food processor for this if you wish as well. I like using chicken thigh for this because it's got sort of that little bit of fat in there, that marbling that just works great with any type of dumpling or momo. There's something about mincing meat by hand. It's incredibly therapeutic. Or nicely minced up into the mix. And you can see that the ratio of minced meat to vegetable is really quite small, and it's there just to bind. You want to season this mix quite generously, just with some salt and a little bit of soy sauce. And then give that a good massage through. Make sure that mince gets well mixed in. And you can see how that small amount of mince, if well minced, has brought everything together. The dumpling dough is easy. Plain flour, a bit of water, pinch of salt. And a drizzle of oil. I don't mind just putting that drizzle of oil into the water before I start to mix it together. Now, when you're mixing your water in, I'd say start it off with a good amount, a couple of tablespoons, and then from there, go gradually. And it's just cold water. And we're going for a nice sort of pliable texture, but you want it not to be too wet that it just kind of all falls apart. So get one hand over the bowl and one hand into the bowl, one hand clean, one hand dirty, before you start to add any more water to the mix, just to feel how much moisture is inside that dough. It's looking a little dry on the outside still, so I might need a little bit more water to pick up the rest of the flour. Once you've got just enough liquid in to pick up all the flour around the edge of the bowl before kneading, you should be okay. At this point, out of the bowl and give it a knead. Now there's no fancy way of doing this. Just push and roll and push and roll and fold. And what you're doing is just making that dough more and more elastic as you go. And again, there's not a lot of flour in this and a lot of dough. Not a lot of dough. But the idea is that for me, whether you're making momos or any other dumpling, the thinner the pastry before cooking, the better. You don't want it too thick and doughy. And so I'll only use a small roll of dough per dumpling. So after a few minutes, you should start to get a much more elastic bit of dough. And if you sort of roll it into a nice ball, you'll then see that I've got this smooth lump of dough. And if I push into it with my thumbs, and I don't sort of start to get any cracks until a little bit later, say halfway through, then I'd say that's smooth enough. And it's time to let it rest. Whilst it's resting, just so it doesn't dry out too quickly, cover that with your bowl. Let it rest for about 3 minutes. From here, I'm going to use my sort of knowledge of dim sum. And that is the sort of traditional way is just using your hands really and a rolling pin to sort of divvy this all out. As I said, each pastry, you only need a small bit of dough to make your dumpling. Once you've got a cylinder of dough like so, then you just peel off sort of a thumb's worth of pastry. Now I'm just making little rounds of dough here before I start to roll them out. And I'm using a traditional Chinese technique that we like to call at School of Wok, the pinchy, pinchy, twisty, twisty, which is a sort of hole punch into the middle of the dough and pinch and twist it back together again. Hole punch, pinch and twist, hole punch, pinch and twist. If you can't figure that out, then just roll it in the palm of your hands like so. Now we're going to roll these that traditional dim sum method, but if you just wanted to roll one thin sheet of pastry out and you have a cookie cutter, you could do that too. So what we do is we press down your lump of dough, and the rounder you start, the rounder you'll finish, and then your middle finger and thumb are my spokes to my wheel, and the dough is my wheel. My index finger twists that wheel round anti-clockwise because my right hand is on my rolling pin. Whilst it's twisting, you push in with the pin. Twist and push, twist and push, and then you get these nice, perfect, round, thin pastries. Now, traditionally, Momo would be folded quite similarly to a Chinese soup dumpling or a xiaolongbao, which is sort of pleats all the way around. And I'll show you how we do that. And that is with what I call the crane, because it comes from the top. My pincers come from the top, and I start to sort of overlap one index finger towards another to pleat over and over and over again. Now that can be quite tedious for a beginner, so I'll show you in a second how else to do something similar. It might not look quite as beautiful, but who cares? Tastes good anyway. The easier way would be to start with what I like to call the fat cat fold, and that is to go into a half moon, so fold it over in half, and then press all the way around the edges, like so. And then hold these corners up and bring corner to corner to make my little fat cat ears. Once you've done that, then you overlap the ears and squeeze them together. You could leave it like that and it'd look like kind of like a tortellini. Or if you wanted to go the whole hog without having to worry about too much extensive practice, then you can kind of just roughly overlap and pleat from there. And you can see that you get quite a similar outcome. Now, traditionally, these momos are steamed in a steam basket. I actually prefer to boil them much you would a gyoza or like wati. So I'm gonna just pop them into some lightly it's on a rolling boil, but sort of medium heat. And they're not huge, these dumplings, so they'll take literally 2 to 3 minutes. Once they've hit that rolling boil, I'm just going to turn the heat down ever so slightly, just so it's nice and gentle, doesn't break up the pastry. The reason why I like to boil them is I find that they sort of seal the pastry up straight away and cooks the pastry through a little quicker. Now, once these dumplings are floating at the top of this pan of boiling water, they're pretty much ready because all that meat inside, or that little bit of meat, is contracted, allowing air to sort of sit inside the dumplings. And you'll see also with boiling your dumplings that they kind of hold that beautiful shape really well, just as well as steaming. My nice, quick and easy, spicy momos. I've made a really simple sort of dressing or dipping sauce with some light soy sauce, a little bit of rice vinegar and some chili powder. Simple as that. And that is an awesome transformation from one dumpling to another momo. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ding, hit that notification bell and eat more momo.